A very good evening to one and all. Today TSW RES is commencing online classes for degree students through TSAT channel. I'm feeling very grateful for this wonderful opportunity to be a part of this great mission headed by Dr. Praveen Kumar IPS. So today let me start my session, and you all know that the topic I would be dealing with is bills of exchange. So before I start the topic, let me illustrate a small story for you all. There was a person called Ramu, and he wanted to start a business. In order to start a business, what does one require? One requires capital. So Ramu also wanted capital. For this, he decided to seek the help of his two friends. And his two friends were Somu and Himu. Now Ramu went to Somu and he asked for credit. Somu said that he is willing to give the credit, but on one condition. Somu asked Ramu to give in writing that he will pay back the money after 3 months. Ramu agrees for that, and he says that he will write a note and give it to him. So here in this note, he promises Somu that he would return the money after 3 months. Now, why did Somu ask Ramu to write a letter or write a note? Here we all have to remember a fact that whenever we give anyone anything on credit, we have to make sure that we secure ourselves. So that is the reason Somu asked for an evidence, for a proof, for a guarantee. So that note which Ramu has given to Somu, a promise in writing, is what is called as a promissory note. Okay, now this Ramu goes to Himu. Himu also asks for a promissory note, and along with this promissory note, he asks for a post-dated check as well. Now, what do you mean by a post-dated check? See, Ramu gives this check to Himu on this day, but that check can be presented in the bank only after 3 months. So, even if the check is being given today, it can be presented to the bank only after a later date, only on a later period of time. So, that is what is called as a post-dated check. And now, why did Himu ask for a post-dated check? Himu, being smarter than Somu, he thought that even if he goes out of city, he can deposit that check in the bank and he can recover his amount back. Now, let us imagine of a situation. Now, say that Ramu refuses to pay the amount after 3 months. Now, what will happen? Now, see, there are many ways that people can recover the amount back from the one they gave. Now, even Somu and Himu can send persons to Ramu, recover the amount forcefully. But we are not talking about forcible ways here. So, we will talk about the legal ways through which Somu and Himu can recover the amount. Now, can you tell me whether Somu and Himu can recover it in a legal way? Obviously, yes. How can they recover? Because they both are having evidence with them. That is, the evidence which Somu has is a promissory note, and whereas the evidence which Himu has is a post-dated check and a promissory note. Now, when these can be produced in the court, they act as legal documents and the amount can be recovered back from Ramu. Ramu was very well aware of all this. He didn't want to go through all the situations. So, he promptly repaid back Somu and Himu after 3 months. So, what did you understand from this narration? Here you understood that whenever there is a credit given to any person, we have to first safeguard ourselves from the risk. So, for that, we need to have something as a security. Here in this particular example, the promissory note and post-dated check acted as security. Now, these two instruments not only acted as security, but they have also acted as credit instruments. Now, what is this credit instrument? Through this, a person can borrow the amount that required for trade. So, that is, it is used as a trade facilitator. Now, these instruments are being used as trade facilitators, are being used as legal documents, are being used as credit instruments. So, the two instruments that I have narrated now are what are called as negotiable instruments. Now let us understand the meaning of each word that I have written here. The word negotiable stands for transferable, and whereas instrument is nothing but a return document. So now let us understand it in actual sense. Now you can look at the slide. What is a negotiable instrument? Here you can see that it is a signed document that promises a sum of payment to a specified person or the assignee. Assignee means the person to whom it has been assigned. So that is what is a negotiable instrument. Here the negotiable instruments are promissory note and post-dated check. Now when we are talking about promissory note or post-dated check, a check can either be a post-dated check, a bearer check, or whatever. It is a check. So these instruments I told you are negotiable instruments, and negotiable instruments are governed by an act which is called as Negotiable Instruments Act 1881, and in short we call it as the NI Act 1881. And this act has come into force on March 1st, 1882. And this act, the main source of this act is the English common law. Now let us see what this negotiable instrument tells. Now a negotiable instrument means a promissory note, a bill of exchange, or a check payable either to or to the bearer. So that you can see in the slide, that is what the Negotiable Instrument Act tells us. Now here in this example we spoke about promissory note, we spoke about a check. Now there is one more instrument that we didn't speak about, and what is that? That is bills of exchange. So we would specifically be dealing with bills of exchange in our session today. Now before I go ahead with bills of exchange, let us have a look at promissory note. From the slide you can see the promissory note here. That is a promise which is being made to the Imperial Bank that they would repay the amount. So that is what is a promissory note, a note containing a promise to return back the amount after a specified time. Now let us also have a look at check, which we have in the next slide. So this is the check of Kotak Mahindra Bank. Okay. Now let us understand what a bill of exchange is. So for this, I would like to explain this with the help of an example. I'm going to consider two people in my example. You can see it in the slide as well, and the same thing I would be doing on the board. There is a person called X and there is a person called Y. Now X is the owner of a mobile shop. So you all know, right, what do they sell in mobile shops? They sell mobiles, they sell the accessories of mobiles. All the related items to mobiles are being sold by the mobile shop owners. So here in our example, X is the owner of a mobile shop. And now Y is the person who wanted to buy few mobiles from X. So what does Y do? Y goes to X and he says that he wants to buy 100 mobiles. And X says that the cost of each mobile is 1000 rupees. So what is the total amount payable here now? 1 lakh rupees. Now 1 lakh is a huge amount, right? So when it is a huge amount, Y requests X to sell it on a credit basis. So X agrees for that and he sells 100 mobiles to Y on credit basis. Now a credit sale has taken place. Now when a credit sale takes place, I already told you in the very beginning itself, whenever we are giving anything on credit to anyone, we need to have something as a security. So here X has made a credit sale to Y. So for that he has to have some security. For this purpose, what X does is, he takes a paper, a blank paper. On that he writes the amount payable. And what is the amount payable here? 1 lakh rupees. And where is this transaction taking place? Say this transaction is taking place in Hyderabad. So he mentions Hyderabad and also the date on which this transaction is taking place. That is, say it is taking place on April 1st, 2020. This date is very, very important in a bill of exchange. Why is this date important? Because only based on this date, the maturity period is calculated. Now, I told you that X has sold goods to Y on credit basis. And he says that 3 months is the due period. That means Y has to repay back X after 3 months. So, here in this paper, he writes the same thing. 3 months after date, pay Mr. X or order for the value received. Now here, after writing that, he writes his name and address, as well as he writes the name of the buyer as well as his address. And X signs on the bill and he puts a stamp on the bill. And this stamp is what is called as revenue stamp. Now you tell me, can this bill be called as a legal bill? It cannot be called as a legal bill. Why cannot it be called as a legal bill? The person has drawn the bill, that is fine. He has signed the bill, even that is okay. But there is something missing in the bill. What is that? Acceptance. There is no acceptance from the buyer of this bill. So now when do we call it as a legal bill? When do we call it as a valid bill? Only when Y accepts the bill. That is, Y has to sign on the bill. And this is what is called as accepted. That is, the bill has been accepted by Y. So now this bill has got legal sanctity and it is called as a legal bill. Now this bill is what is called as a bill of exchange. Now this bill of exchange is common for both X as well as Y. Now see, the bill is same for both of them. But let us look at from their perspective. From this bill, what X has to get? X has to get certain amount. But from the same bill, what Y has to do with that? Y has to pay certain amount. Here, this person is receiving amount, but whereas this person is paying amount. So this bill will become what to X? It will be called as bills receivable to X. And the same bill will be called as bills payable to Y. See, the bill of exchange is one and the same, but it is acting differently for X and Y. For X it is bills receivable, but whereas for Y it is bills payable. Now, let us understand this example using the parties. Now here, who is the person who has drawn the bill? X is the person who has drawn the bill. And what would X be called as? X would be called as the drawer. Because he is drawing the bill, we are calling him as drawer. Now, on whom he has drawn the bill? He has drawn the bill on Y. So, what would Y be called as? Y would be called as the drawee. Right. Now, I have explained you here the bill of exchange. Now, let us say, for example, instead of writing X here, say this person has written some Z. That is a different person to this transaction, right? But X wants Y to pay Z the amount. Now, this person would be called as the payee. Now, payee is the person to whom the payment has to be made. Now, in many cases, the drawer and payee will be one and the same. But in certain cases, the drawer and the payee can be a different person. So, that is what is bill of exchange. And now, whatever I have written here, that is drawer, drawee and payee, are what are called as parties to bills of exchange. Now, you can see that in the same slide now. Now, see here, you can see a bill of exchange, a specimen copy of a bill of exchange. What is the amount that has to be payable here? That is 10,000 rupees. And what is the place that the transaction has taken place? It took place in Chandni Chowk, which is in Delhi. And the date of transaction is 5th May 2012. And there is a stamp. And who is the drawer? Can you tell me from that bill who can be the drawer? So fur, whatever is written under fur, that person will become the drawer. That is Chandlal and Sons. And whereas the drawee is Agarwal Stores. So now Agarwal Stores has accepted the bill and that bill becomes a valid bill. So now the definition that you can read from there, a bill of exchange, it is an instrument in writing containing an unconditional order signed by the maker directing a certain person to pay a certain sum of money only to or to the order of a certain person or to the bearer of the instrument. A bearer of the instrument is the one who has the possession of the instrument. And this definition is a statutory definition according to your Negotiable Instrument Act 1881. Now let us go into the next slide. Now you can see here parties to bill of exchange that we have already discussed, the drawer, drawee and the payee. Now let us discuss the features of bills of exchange. Now everything that I have explained here, the same thing we can see again. The first thing is that it has to be in writing. Only if it is in writing, then it will be called as a legal bill. Then it is an unconditional order to pay. Now let us come back to the same example here. Now X has drawn a bill on Y and Y has to pay the amount to X after 3 months. But then after 3 months, when X goes to Y and asks for the amount, Y says that sell me 100 more mobiles, then I'll pay you this amount. Then what is happening here? A condition is being kept. So this bill of exchange should be an unconditional order. That is, no conditions have to be involved in that. So then only it can be called as a bill of exchange. And the next one you have is, it has to be signed by the maker. Now who is the maker here? X is the maker and it has been signed by X. And then the amount payable has to be certain. Here the amount payable is 1 lakh rupees. That is, there should be no ambiguity in the payment. Now here if the amount is not mentioned, what is the amount that someone has to pay? So there has to be no doubt in the amount and the amount that has to be paid should be clearly specified. And here in this example, the amount payable is 1 lakh rupees. Now here it has to be paid to a certain person and that certain person is X or to the order. It can be Z or to the bearer of the instrument. That is, whoever is having that instrument. And also the date has to be specified on the bill of exchange. And I told you, when will this bill become a legal bill? It will become a legal bill only when the Y signs the bill. Now here what is Y actually doing? Y is accepting the bill. So when Y is accepting the bill, can we give him another name? Now here we are calling him drawee, that is fine. So because he is accepting the bill, he can be given one another name and that is acceptor. So drawee can also be called as an acceptor. Now we have talked about negotiable instruments, right? So let us recollect back what are the negotiable instruments once again. So they are your promissory note, check and bill of exchange. Now promissory note also there are two parties. One party is giving a promise to another party. Here also you have bill of exchange. Now what is bill of exchange? It is an order that Y has to pay the amount. Now these all are negotiable instruments. Now what is the main advantage of these negotiable instruments? Let us look into the next slide. Now bills of exchange is a negotiable instrument. Here the advantages that we are specifying are not just limited to bills of exchange. They are also for your check as well as promissory note. So I would like to explain them one by one. Now first one is, it can be used as a legal document. I already told you that whenever there is a default in the payment by the drawee, they can produce it in the law of court and can recover the amount back. So here it is serving the purpose of a legal document. Now let us look at another possible situation. Now in our previous example, X gave Y 3 months due period. That is, after 3 months, Y has to repay back X. But what happens is, X falls in need of money. Then, can he go and ask Y to give back the money before 3 months? Will the law allow for that? Obviously no. Then he has to think of another alternative. What could that alternative be? Now here something comes into the picture, and that is bank. He can go to the bank. And what can he do by going to the bank? He can get it discounted with the bank. What do you mean by discounting with the bank? It is nothing but selling the bills that you have to the bank. Now I already told you X is having bills receivable with him. So he takes that to the bank and sells to the bank. Now the value of the bill is 1 lakh rupees. Right? But do you think the bank will give complete 1 lakh to X? No. It will deduct its charges. And see, the charges of the bank are 5% at the rate of 5%. Then what is the amount deducted by the bank here? 5,000. So this is nothing but the discount allowed by you. So now whenever you are needing money before the due date, you can go to the bank and you can get it discounted with the bank. So now how much is X getting here? X is getting 95,000 rupees. So in that way his need has been fulfilled. And the bank also had been at a benefit. How? It has got certain amount assets charges. Now what will the bank do at a later date? The bank will go to Y after 3 months and bank collects the amount from Y. So now that is what is called as discounting the bill with a bank. The first advantage that I have spoken about is it is acting as a legal document. And the second one is it is acting as discounting instrument. That is, discounting with the bank can be done with the help of this bill. And lastly, as I already told you that it is a negotiable instrument. And I also gave you the meaning of negotiable. What is the meaning of negotiable? It is transferable. So, it can be transferred from one person to another person. So, when it is being transferred, it can be used for the settlement of debt. So, these are the advantages of all your negotiable instruments, not just your bill of exchange. Now, I already showed you what is a promissory note, and now you have a clear idea of what a bill of exchange is. Let us understand few differences between promissory note and bills of exchange. Now see, when you talk about a bill of exchange, it is an order to pay. But when you talk about a promissory note, it is a promise to pay. And you have seen in bills of exchange that there are 3 parties to bill of exchange. That is drawer, drawee and payee. But when it comes to promissory note, there are only 2 parties. That is maker and the payee. And next difference is, I told you, the drawee and the payee can be the same. But whereas in the case of a promissory note, can the drawer and payee be the same? No, they cannot be the same. Drawer and payee will always be different because payee is the person to whom the payment has to be made. And then, now when will this, again I'll come back to the same example, X and Y. And X got the bill discounted with the bank. So what has the bank, what should the bank do now? After 3 months, it has to go to Y for the collection of the amount. But then Y does not pay the amount. Then who will become liable to pay the amount? X will become liable to pay the amount. That is what they are saying, that the liability of X will arise only when there is a default in the payment of Y. But whereas when we talk about promissory note, the pay, that is whoever has drawn the bill. Who drew the bill? The person who has to make the payment has drawn the bill. He is called as the maker of the bill. the maker of the bill alone will be responsible. The ultimate liability lies in the hands of the maker himself. So these are the differences between your bills of exchange and promissory note. Now let us talk about the accounting treatment. So now till now we have even seen some of the legal aspects, but now here we would not be dealing with any of the legal aspects. We will be just concentrating on how do we show the accounting treatment for the bills of exchange. Now though I told you that bills of exchange and promissory note are different, but when it comes to the accounting aspect, both of them are treated as the same. So the accounting procedure would be one and the same for both promissory note as well as bills of exchange. So now let us consider the same example and let us talk about the accounting treatment. Now before I speak about the accounting treatment, shall we once have a look at accounting rules that we have to follow? So this is very important. If you know this, journalizing the transactions would be very easy. Now you have assets, debit and credit. Remember that assets will always show a debit balance. That is, if there is an increase in the asset, it has to be debited. But when it comes to credit, whenever there is a decrease in the asset, it has to be credited. Now next we will talk about liabilities. Now liabilities, it is the opposite. If there is an increase in the liability, it has to be credited. But when there is a decrease in the liability, it has to be debited. Then next we will talk about income. Income, it can also be called as revenue. Here also, when there is an increase in the revenue, it has to be credited. But whenever there is a decrease in the revenue, it has to be debited. Now let us talk about expenses. Now when you talk about expenses, if there is an increase in the expense, it has to be debited. And when there is a decrease in the expense, it has to be credited. And then lastly you have your capital. Increase in the capital has to be credited and decrease in the capital has to be debited. So from this, now if I told you debit credit, but there is a simple way to remember this. When you look at this, there are only two plus signs in the column of debit. So you can simply remember that only for assets and expenses, it is debit balance. For others, it is credit balance. So based upon this accounting rule, let us start our accounting treatment. So we will go step by step for you to be clear. Now what is the first thing that has happened? X has sold goods to Y on credit basis. You know, whenever a credit transaction takes place, what is the journal entry that you would be recording? Y account datas to sales account. Now who is Y here? Y is the drawee. So drawee's account datas to sales account. Now why did we debit drawee's account? Now here X has sold goods to Y. Now X would be called as what? X would be called as creditor, and whereas Y would be called as debtor. And what is debtor? Debtor is an asset. So when it is an asset, what has to be done? Asset account has to be debited. That is the reason we are debiting Y's account. And next what are we crediting? We are crediting sales account. And why are we crediting sales account? You know that sales is an income or a revenue, and I told you credit means plus and debit means minus. Sales means there is a revenue into the business, so it has to be credited. That is the account Y account datas to sales account. So that is the journal entry you would be recording when a credit sale has taken place. Okay. Now after a credit sale has taken place, then what did happen next? X has drawn a bill of exchange. Then what did Y do then? After this bill of exchange has been drawn, Y has accepted that bill. So that, how do you show it? Now these entries, before I go further, we are recording in whose books? These entries are being recorded in the books of drawer. Now who is drawer from our example? X is the drawer. So we are recording in the books of X, and this is the first transaction that has taken place. Now let us see the same transaction, how it can be recorded in the books of drawee. Now who is drawee from our example? Drawee is Y. Drawer is X and drawee is Y. Now here this is a credit sale, and what will it happen there? It is a credit purchase. And how do you record a credit purchase? The entry will be purchases account datas to X account. Now who is X to Y in this? X is the creditor. Creditor is a liability. An increase in the liability has to be credited. And purchases is an expense. An increase in the expense has to be debited. Here you should remember a point that purchases can be treated either ways. Purchases can be an asset as well as an expense. In both the cases, an increase in the asset is also a debit, an increase in expense is also a debit. So it is purchases account datas to X account. So after this, the next process, what happened was, this person X has drawn a bill on Y, and that bill has been accepted by Y. So here the case is bills drawn and accepted. Now for bills drawn and accepted, how would we write the entry in the books of drawer? Now for drawer, what I told you it would be? For drawer it would be bills receivable, and bills receivable is an asset. So asset has to be debited. So bills receivable account datas to. Now here let me tell you a point. Now in the first journal entry, what do you see here? Y is our debtor. This asset here is being replaced by bills receivable. So what we have to do? We have to remove Y from our books. When you have to remove Y from the books of X, what you have to do? A decrease in the asset has to be credited. So Y is the actual asset here. So there is a decrease in this asset, that is Y is no longer there in our books. So we have to credit Y's account. So that is bills receivable account datas to Y account. So that is when the bill is drawn. Now let us see the same entry, how it would be recorded in the books of drawee. When this person is having bills receivable, what would that person be having? He would be having bills payable. So now bills payable is a liability. Liability, it is a credit balance. So bills payable account would be credited. Now here what is happening? Bills payable account is credited, and with what it is being debited? It is debited with, who is the person who gave him the credit? X was the person who gave him the credit. So X account datas to bills payable account. So here a liability has been increased in the books of Y. Now what happened is, next, now we'll go back to the example once again. We have X and Y with us. X is the drawer and Y is the drawee. So the due period here we were talking about is 3 months. So after 3 months, X has gone to Y, and Y has accepted the bill. What is the meaning of accepting the bill? Accepting the bill is nothing but making the payment promptly. That is, when the bill has been presented to Y, Y has made the payment. So whenever a bill is discharged exactly on the due date, we call it as honor of the bill. Okay, so what is the next entry that we have to record? We have to record the entry for honor of the bill. So now, when do we get cash? When does X get cash from Y? Only when he presents this bills receivable. Now this bills receivable has been presented to Y, and in return he has got cash. Now cash is an asset. there is an increase in the cash. So an increase in the cash has to be debited. So that is cash account. So this payment can be made either through cash or it can be made either through bank. So cash account or bank account, datas to. Now what is the asset which is no longer there with us? Bills receivable. So this account has to be credited. So this is the entry for the honor of the bill. That is when the bill has been presented for payment and the bill has been honored. Now let us look at the same entry in the case of drawee. Now drawee is paying the amount. So whenever someone is paying the amount, which account should get credited? So if you remember the asset rule, debit increase, credit decrease. So cash is going out of the business. So when cash is going out of the business, his cash account has to be credited in the books of Y. So that is to cash account. And what is decreasing here? A liability which he earlier had is no longer there. So when there is a decrease in the liability, what we have to do with that? We have to debit it. So that is bills payable account, datas to cash or bank account. It can either be through cash or it can be through bank. So these are the journal entries we would be recording in the case of honor of a bill. Now I already told you about discounting of a bill, right? Now what did you understand by discounting of a bill? So that is, now from our example, from the same example, X is our drawer and Y is the drawee. X has given a time period of 3 months to Y. But X required amount in the 3 months itself. Before the 3 months itself, he required the amount. So he cannot go to Y and ask for the money. So what is the rescue option now? He can go to the bank. So when he goes to the bank will discount his bill at a particular rate. Now previously I explained you with the help of 5%, that is 5,000 has been taken as discount charges. Now here in the slide you can see a person is going to the bank and is getting his bill discounted with the bank. So for that he is giving cash in return. So now when you are getting cash, now we will see the entries in the books of X and we will see the entries in the books of Y. X is the drawer and Y is the drawee. Okay. Now X is getting cash. Now here you have to remember one another important point, that is the transaction is taking place through bank. So when the transaction is taking place through bank, whatever amount the bank gives, it will be directly deposited to the bank account of X. The amount will not be given in the form of cash. So you are receiving the amount through bank. So which account has to be debited now? Bank account has to be debited. That is bank account datas. Now what are we doing here? Are we taking the complete amount? No. We are allowing the bank to discount the bill. That is, we are allowing it to cut its charges. So now when we are allowing a discount, is it our expense or is it our income? Is it our expense? So whenever there is an increase in the expense, what should we do with that? We have to debit it. So now we are debiting the discount account. And what should you credit? Now what is the asset which is no longer there with us? Which asset have we given to the bank? We have given bills receivable to the bank. So bills receivable is the asset which we no longer have with us. So that account has to be credited. So the entry will be to bills receivable account. So now this is the transaction. This transaction took place between which two persons? This transaction has taken place only between X and bank. Was Y involved anywhere? Y was not involved anywhere. Here it is only X and the bank. So do we have to record any entry in the books of Y? No entry will be recorded in the books of Y. So this particular entry is for the entry when the bill is discounted with bank. Okay, now let us think of another situation. What can happen? Now say this person X has taken loan from a person Z, and this person is having an asset, and that asset is bills receivable. Bills receivable in short can be written as BR. Now Z comes to X and asks for money. Then X says, I'm not having any money now, but I can give my bills receivable to you. And Z accepts for that. So now what X does is, X gives this bills receivable to Z. Now that is what is transferring in favor of some other person. Now this bills receivable which was with X has been transferred to Z. Now this process of transferring is what is called as endorsement. Now in this endorsement, who is the endorser? Who is endorsee? The person who is endorsing is called as the endorser. Now the person who is transferring, who is the person? X. So this person is called as the endorser. And who would be called as endorsee? Z would be called as the endorsee. Okay. So now what is happening here? X is giving the bill to Z, and that process what we are calling it as endorsement. Now let us see how do we record the entry in the books. Now here again X and Y. X is our drawer and Y is our drawee. Now what has X done? He has given the bill which he had with him to Z. Now Z is the person who is receiving it. Debit the receiver, credit the giver when we are coming to the traditional rules of accounting. So whose account has to be credited? Whose account has to be debited? Z's account has to be debited. Now who is Z in the example? Z is the endorsee. And what has to be credited? Bills receivable has to be credited. Why should you credit bills receivable? You have to credit bills receivable because the asset is no longer there with X. And I already told you, whenever an asset is no longer there with X, it has to be credited. A decrease in the asset always have to be credited, and increase in the asset always has to be debited. Now here the transaction took place between which two persons? It took place between X and Z. Now was Y involved anywhere in this transaction? Y was not involved. When Y is not involved, what we have to do? We should not record any entry in the books of Y. Now let us look at the next slide, that is endorsing the bill to creditor. Whatever bill you are having with you, that you are giving it to some other person. You are transferring in his favor, and that process what is called as endorsement. And now you can see the next slide, which is bills sent to bank for collection. Now why do one person have to send his bills to bank for collection? Now again coming back to the same example of X and Y. This X, say he has given 100 bills to 100 different people. Would you think it would be possible for X to personally go to every person and collect the amount back from him? No. So for that reason, he again takes the help of the bank. So when he is taking the help of the bank, now what is he giving to the bank? He is giving the bills receivable. That is no longer there with him. As I told you, whenever an asset is no longer there with him, what he has to do with that? He has to credit it. So X will credit bills receivable to bills receivable account. But now, is he giving off it to bank? Is he selling it to the bank? No. He is just sending it for collection. That is also an asset. So now this bill sent for collection will become an asset to X. So that is what we write here. Bills sent for collection. So this account has been debited and this account has been credited. Now this transaction is also taking place between which two parties? It is taking place between X and the bank. So was Y involved anywhere else? Y was not involved. So there will be no entry in the books of Y. So this is the entry when bills are sent to bank for collection. Now actually when the bank collects the amount, what it does? It deposits the amount back into the account of X. So here bank account will be debited. And the asset, now what is the asset which we don't have now? Bill sent for collection. So to bills sent for collection. And we will talk about the last aspect now, which is dishonor of the bill. Now I have earlier given you an example, X and Y. That is, X after 3 months goes to Y and Y pays the amount. So that is what is called as honor of the bill. Now let us think of another possible situation that can happen. Thinking it in another way, Y may not make the payment. If Y does not make the payment, then what it would be called as? It would be called as dishonor of the bill. Now you can see the next slide, that is dishonor of the bill. That is, a bill is being presented for payment and that person refuses to pay the amount. That is what is called as dishonor of the bill. So now this dishonor of the bill, whenever a dishonor is happening, what can X do actually? X can make an appeal to the notary public. He can get it noted with the notary public, and for that he has to pay certain charges. And those charges are called as notary charges. And these notary charges have to be borne by the drawer. Okay. After seeing all this, now let us go to the assessment part, what we have understood till now. Now let us look at the question number 1. Bills receivable account is a. You have 3 options here, real account, personal account and nominal account. Now as you know, bills receivable is an asset account. So whenever it is an asset account, you know that assets come under which account? They come under your real account. So your bills receivable account would be your real account. Now see the next question. On the acceptance of a bill, the acceptor debits. Now who is the acceptor in our example? Y is our acceptor. And what does he debit? Does he debit payee's account, creditor's account or bills payable account? So whenever he is accepting a bill, his liability is increasing. If a liability is increasing, it has to be credited. So bills payable account is getting credited. Then whose account is getting debited? X account is getting debited. So who is X here? X is the creditor to Y. So what would be your answer here? Creditor. Now looking at the last question. When a bill is endorsed, credit is given to. Now just now we have seen Z account has been debited and whose account has been credited? Bills receivable account has been credited. So that is, the answer here would be bills receivable account. So this is what we have learned today. So that is all about the honor of the bill and the journal entries that have to be recorded in the honor of a bill. Continue. Okay. So now also we will look at certain, now I told you that whenever there is a dishonor of the bill, there is something that has to be paid, which is notary charges. Now I will talk about another aspect, which is renewal of the bill. Now what do you understand by renewal? Renewing means doing it again. Suppose you have a monthly plan. Say the monthly plan is 100 rupees. The next month what you have to do? You have to again pay 100 rupees to activate that plan. So that is called as renewal. But here when it comes to bills of exchange, what does a renewal mean? Renewal means cancelling the original bill and drawing a new bill. So that is what is called as renewal of the bill. When the drawer, that is X, cancels the previous bill and draws the new bill, that is what is called as renewal of the bill. Now let us talk about another possible case in bills of exchange, that is retiring of a bill. Now what is retiring of a bill? Say in the example, X has given him how many months period time? 3 months period time. So when he gave 3 months period time, Y has returned the amount back only in 2 months. So now if someone gives you the amount back in a lesser time than actually you gave them, what you should do? You should give them some bonus, or you should give them some benefit, right? So the benefit that here the X gives Y is rebate on bills. Now here rebate is nothing but like it is like cashback. So now when you recharge with 2000 rupees, they say that they'll give you 100 rupees cashback, like that. So when the amount is being paid in advance, then the drawer is giving the drawee a rebate on the bill. So that is a bonus to the drawee. So he will be benefited out of that. And lastly, we will talk about another aspect, which is accommodation. Now accommodation is nothing but it is like a settlement. Now here drawer and drawee, both of them will try to help each other. So for help, now first when I explain you the initial example of X and Y, X has actually sold goods to Y and the value of the goods was 1 lakh rupees, and that 1 lakh is what we call as consideration for the mobiles. But here when we talk about accommodation bills, there is no consideration involved. So when there is no consideration involved, what we have to do? Still a bill is being drawn. Why are they drawing this bill? This bill is being drawn to help each other, and that bill we call as accommodation bill. Accommodation bill is drawn for the purpose of helping. So these are the 4 aspects that we have learnt in bills of exchange. One is honor of the bill, one is dishonor of the bill, next one is renewal and retiring, and the last one is accommodation of bills. Thank you.